My daughter froze my bank accounts, gave me an allowance, and said it was for my own good. Then she tried to move me into a nursing home without telling me. But what she didn't know was I wasn't confused. I wasn't finished. And I was about to remind her exactly who she was dealing with. Before I begin, thank you for listening to my story. Let me know in the comments where and what time you're tuning in from. It means more than you know. It reminds me that I'm not alone in this. And if you'd like to share your story with me, feel free to email it. I'll drop my email in the description below. Now, let me tell you what really happened. I was never one to need help managing my affairs. I paid off my mortgage before Sarah even graduated college. I kept a little ledger where I tracked every dollar. My balance was always precise down to the cent. That's why it stunned me when my own daughter started treating me like I was the child. It all started when I turned 76. I had just come in from fixing my neighbor's fence when I felt lightheaded and collapsed in the garage. My neighbor heard the crash and called an ambulance. The hospital kept me overnight for dehydration and low blood sugar. Nothing more. But when Sarah arrived the next morning, everything changed. "Dad, we have to talk about your safety," she said. "What if you've been alone longer?" She asked questions like she wanted permission to feel superior. A few days after I came home, Sarah brought over a banker named David Chen. "It's just temporary," Sarah said, guiding me to the kitchen table. "Power of attorney, you know, in case anything ever happens again. I'll just be authorized to help with your accounts." I didn't like the sound of it. But Sarah was my daughter, my only child. She rubbed my shoulder while I signed and said she'd handle things until I was feeling stronger. At first, I didn't notice anything had changed. Then one morning, I went to buy hardware supplies for a neighbor's project. My debit card declined. Confused, I tried again. Declined. I called Sarah. "Not to worry," she said. "I moved some things around, Dad. Just streamlining everything. You don't really need to handle that anymore." That was the first time she said those words, "You don't need to handle that anymore." Sarah started showing up with printouts of monthly summaries like she was managing a client, not caring for her father. When I asked about missing bank statements, she told me they were going paperless. "It's more modern," she said. "Besides, it's not like you read all those pages." Then Sarah took my debit card so you don't misplace it again. She set up a joint checking account for emergencies but never gave me access. When I called my insurance provider, they said the point of contact had been changed to her. That's when I started writing things down, dates, names, amounts. I kept the notebook tucked inside a workshop manual no one ever touched. One day, I mentioned wanting to buy a new winter jacket. Sarah told me it wasn't in the budget right now. My own money, not in the budget. Then came the final insult. Sarah called it monthly discretionary support, $200 loaded onto a prepaid card like I was a teenager getting allowance. That was the last straw. I called my nephew Marcus. He works in cybersecurity, lives out in Charlotte. When I told him I needed help, he didn't ask questions. Just said, "I'll be there Thursday." Marcus arrived wearing his usual North Carolina hoodie. I handed him my little notebook. He flipped through it slowly, his eyes narrowing. "You've been tracking all of this?" he asked. "I never stopped," I said. "They just hoped I would." He pulled out his laptop and got to work. My old passwords didn't work, Sarah had changed everything. Marcus ran a trace on my social security number. That's when we found it. Foreclosed accounts. 2 others rerouted under something called Henderson Legacy Holdings. My name wasn't even listed as a secondary owner. "She created a shell company," Marcus said, turning the screen toward me. "And she's been using your money to fund it. $97,000 gone. Can we get it back?" I asked. Marcus looked me dead in the eye. "If we have records and a good lawyer, yes. But you have to be careful. You can't tip her off yet. He helped me download an app on a spare phone and taught me how to screen record. Anytime she says something shady, record it. Don't confront her. Just keep gathering. Over the next few weeks, I pretended like nothing had changed. I complimented Kevin's cooking when they came over. I asked Sarah how her business was doing. I even thanked her for taking care of everything. But every time she slipped and said something like, my portfolio, or, the equity in the house, I tapped that little red button and saved it all. One day, she sat across from me and said, you know, Dad, it's honestly better this way. You don't have to worry about a thing. No stress. I smiled. You're right, sweetheart. I'm just so lucky to have a daughter like you. She grinned and patted my hand like I was a confused old man. She had no idea she was digging her own grave. By the end of that week, Marcus returned with a folder thicker than a phone book. This is everything, he said. Account movements, email traces, phone call transcripts. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a dusty manila folder. My original will, I said. And the contact for my attorney. His name is Robert Kane. I'm thinking it's time. I called Robert the next morning. Frank Henderson, he said, his voice sharp and professional. I was wondering when you'd call me again. What's going on? Someone's stealing from me, I said. And it's my own daughter. He didn't gasp. Didn't hesitate. How soon can you get to my office? I was there by noon. Robert looked exactly the same, gray beard, wire-rimmed glasses, navy suit like he meant business. I gave him everything, Marcus's folder, my documents, the recordings. He read through it all without saying a word. Then he looked up at me. We're not going to confront them. We're going to let them trap themselves. He explained his plan. First, he'd file for an emergency financial review. Meanwhile, I would act like nothing was wrong. The goal was to give Sarah enough rope to hang herself. Robert also updated my will. Everything would be moved into a trust in my name only with Marcus as secondary executor. If they try to move you, declare you unfit, or sell property without your consent, he said, we'll bury them. I walked out of his office with fire in my chest. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. By Christmas, I had enough evidence to fill a filing cabinet. Meanwhile, Sarah thought she was smart. In one email thread, she'd been corresponding with a real estate consultant about listing my house. There were digital renderings of what the place could look like once the elderly occupant is relocated. That was me, the elderly occupant. Worse yet, I found an appraisal form with my forged signature, submitted 3 weeks prior. I had never seen it. She forged your signature, Marcus said. That's a felony, Uncle Frank. I didn't shake. I didn't curse. I just walked to the kitchen, poured myself coffee, and let my pulse slow down. Sarah came by the next Saturday like clockwork. She sat on the couch, smiled like she was doing me a favor, and said, so Dad, we need to have a real talk about your future. There's this beautiful senior community called Golden Oaks. We already toured it. Kevin added, and the best part, we can finally get that vintage furniture appraised. Some of it might be worth something, just sitting here collecting dust. I looked at both of them. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't tremble. I had everything I needed now. That sounds lovely, sweetheart, I said. When were you thinking? Early February, Sarah said. We're just waiting for a couple of offers to come in, but don't worry, we'll handle the move. I smiled. Of course. That night, I called Robert. They're moving forward. They're planning to relocate me and sell the house. His voice was crisp as ever. Then it's time. I'll file the injunction tomorrow. The next morning, I found a Christmas card from Sarah and Kevin, a photo of them on a cruise ship. Inside it read, happy holidays from the future Henderson estate managers. No mention of me. I tore the card in half and dropped it in the trash. Then I poured myself coffee and stared out at my front yard. It was still mine. Robert helped me freeze any further account transfers and filed the fraud complaint. We set up security cameras just in case they tried to move me without consent. Every angle was covered. Then Robert said, "New Year's is coming up. Invite them. Say nothing. Let them bring their smug smiles and their grand plans. We'll handle the rest." New Year's Day came quiet and cold. I put on my best flannel shirt and waited. They arrived at 2:30, late as usual. Sarah barged in holding store-bought cookies. Kevin wore a new leather jacket and cologne too strong for dinner. They brought friends this time, strangers who scanned my home like it was a listing. Sarah's voice carried across the living room. "This place has great bones. We could knock out this wall, add value." She didn't even look at me when she said it. When everyone sat down, Sarah tapped her glass. "Before we eat, I want to say a few words. This year's been full of growth and hard decisions. As many of you know, we'll be moving Dad into Golden Oaks in February." Kevin cut in with a laugh. "Don't worry, it's gorgeous. He'll be pampered." One of their guests leaned forward. "And the house?" Sarah smiled. "We're already entertaining offers. This place has been in the family for decades, but it's time for a new chapter." I stood then. Not fast, not loud, just slow and steady. "Thank you, Sarah," I said. "But I have an announcement too." She looked confused for half a second. "I won't be moving to Golden Oaks," I said. "In fact, I've already made arrangements elsewhere." Kevin blinked. "What? And this house?" I continued. "It's staying exactly where it is. In my name. Under my control." Sarah set down her wine. "Excuse me. I've also restored full control of my finances. Turns out, creating shell companies and forging signatures is illegal." "Who knew?" The room fell quiet. And then the front door opened. In walked Robert Kane, polished shoes clicking against the hardwood, holding a leather briefcase. "Mr. Henderson," he said warmly. "Everything is finalized. The injunction has been filed, the fraud report is active, and your updated will has been notarized." Kevin shot to his feet. "Who is this?" Robert smiled. "I'm his attorney, and you're going to want to sit down." Sarah's face went red. "You can't do this. You signed over power of attorney." "No," I said. "You tricked me into signing a temporary document during a medical episode, then exploited it. That's not help. That's theft." Robert laid down copies of the fraud complaint, the forged appraisal form, and the court motion. "You used his identity to open an LLC. You drained over $97,000 from his accounts. You forged his signature to appraise a home that didn't belong to you. That's multiple felonies." Kevin sat down slowly, looking paler than I'd ever seen him. "You always said I wasn't sharp anymore," I told Sarah. "But it turns out I was just quiet. And I let you show me exactly who you are." "You don't understand," she stammered. "I was just trying to help." "No," I said. "You were trying to control. And now you've lost everything." Robert slid one final paper across the table. "You've also been removed from his estate permanently." Her mouth fell open. "And just so we're clear," I added, "Marcus is the sole executor now. He'll make sure you never get near another dime of mine." For a full minute, no one spoke. Then Kevin grabbed his jacket. "Come on, Sarah. Let's go." But she didn't follow. She just stood there staring at me, her mouth open, her world crumbling. Robert walked them to the door. "If either of you attempt to contact him again, we'll pursue harassment charges. Good day." The door closed behind them. And then I laughed. It wasn't loud, it was the kind that comes up from your chest after you've held it in too long. I looked around the table at the half-finished plates, picked up my fork, and took a bite of apple pie. It was delicious. The court date came fast. I sat in front of the judge with 3 folders in my lap. Sarah showed up late, looking like she hadn't slept. Her suit was wrinkled. Kevin wasn't with her. The judge was a no-nonsense man with sharp glasses. He read through the documents in silence. Robert laid out the entire timeline, how I'd been misled, how Sarah had rerouted my funds into a fraudulent LLC, how she'd forged my signature, and how she planned to move me into a senior home to liquidate my house. Sarah tried to interrupt. Your Honor, he's confused. My father's memory isn't what it used to be. The judge didn't even look up. I've reviewed the audio recordings. He doesn't sound confused. You do. She sat down. I see this more often than I care to admit, the judge said. But this is one of the most calculated I've ever seen. Sarah looked at me, eyes pleading. Dad, please. This isn't what it looks like. I leaned forward. It looks like you stole from me. Looks like you wanted me out of the way. And it looks like I finally did something about it. The judge restored full legal and financial control to me effective immediately. Sarah's power of attorney was revoked. She was ordered to pay restitution, $97,000 plus interest and attorney fees. Any future attempts to access my accounts would result in criminal charges. I walked out of that courtroom with my shoulders high. I got my name back, my life back, my dignity. By March, everything Sarah touched was undone. As for her, she lost her real estate license 2 weeks after the ruling. Word got out that she'd been accused of elder abuse and fraud. Kevin filed for divorce soon after. Last I heard, Sarah was working part-time at a tax preparation office, living in a studio apartment. The irony, she now helps people organize finances she can't manage herself. Me. I bought a 3-bedroom ranch house near Marcus. 1 floor, big garage, and a workshop where I build birdhouses again. Every morning I wake up, brew my own coffee, and check my own accounts. No one tells me what's in my budget. No one calls me forgetful when I ask questions. Marcus visits every Sunday with his kids. One afternoon he asked, Uncle Frank, do you miss her? I thought about the girl I raised. The one who used to bring me drawings and call me daddy. I miss who she used to be, I said. But I don't miss who she became. That night, I sat in my workshop and looked at the half-finished birdhouse on my bench. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel watched, managed, or doubted. I felt free. Sarah finally got what she wanted, she got to be in charge of nothing. In June, I got a knock on my door. It was Sarah. She looked thinner, eyes sunken, hands fidgeting. She didn't bring flowers, just herself. Dad, she said, voice low. Can we talk? We sat on the porch. I lost everything, she said. I've been working part-time, living paycheck to paycheck. I deserved it. I was scared of losing you, of not being needed. But I got greedy. I'm not asking for money or forgiveness, she added. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to be better. I looked at her. Her hands were shaking. You betrayed me, I said. You turned me into a problem to manage, a bank account, a burden. You stole from me and called it protection. Her jaw trembled. And still, I said, my voice soft now, you are my daughter. But you are no longer my legacy. She bowed her head. I stood and stepped inside. As I was closing the door, I heard her voice barely above a whisper, I miss you, Dad. I paused. I hope someday you'll grow into the woman I raised, not the one you became. Then I shut the door. And that was the last time we spoke. Now when I walk through my house, every room speaks peace. Marcus stops by every weekend with his family. We drink coffee on the porch and laugh. He updates me on the scholarship fund I started with the recovered money. We've helped 8 students this semester. When people ask me how I bounced back after what my daughter did, I tell them the truth. I didn't bounce. I stood up. And I never let anyone sit me down again.